NoDQ.com live stream for 2020. This is NoDQ&A video, a special live edition. Tonight, I will be answering your questions from the chat room, anything regarding WWE and AEW in the year 2020. We'll break down everything. We'll recap the best moments, the worst moments. No doubt, 2020 was a unique year for the world. A very unique year, to say the least. Not the best year, a year where many of us had to adapt, to change. WWE, AEW, the wrestling world, everyone had to adapt to the change. The COVID-19 pandemic changed the way business has gone down for decades. Something we've never seen before. Televised wrestling shows with no fans. The lifeblood of the industry. It was tough to watch, especially those first several weeks. And at Wrestlemania, having to go from Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, Florida to the Performance Center in Orlando. That was insane. That was voted, and rightfully so, the NoDQ.com year-end award for Headline of the Year. As big as Edge's return was, COVID-19, that took center stage. We had WrestleMania, empty arena. WWE did the absolute best they could under the circumstances to produce a show that could help people escape from the real world, give them something that they could enjoy and laugh about and maybe even cry about. WWE delivered with it, but looking back, it was rough to watch. Now, over several weeks, WWE and AEW, they adapted. AEW managed to have a small amount of people at Daly's Place in Jacksonville, and AEW had that amphitheater to run their shows. That helped them out. WWE had the Performance Center. The big negative to that was, well, it's the Performance Center. It looked very low rent on television. WWE ratings continued to decline, and it was just awkward to watch people coming out, and it felt like people coming out to rehearse a play. That's how it came off. But over time, WWE made changes. They changed the camera angles, the way the shows were shot, and they started bringing in people. First, it was Performance Center recruits, and then later they started bringing in select group of fans. But unfortunately, things happened. There were COVID-19 outbreaks, which were inevitable with so many people coming in and out, and WWE had to change again. We'll get to that more here in just a minute. The one and only Caleb Jacobs sent in a very generous $50 super chat. Thank you so much for that, Caleb. I really do appreciate it. He says, in my opinion, AEW is an awesome alternative to WWE. NXT is second. AEW has done a phenomenal job. AEW had a really difficult hole to get out of because they're the new company. WWE is the established brand. They've been around for decades and they have the money. And yes, Tony Khan's family, they got money too. But for AEW, they had so much momentum. And then the pandemic hit. And AEW had to just come up with something to try and keep the momentum going. Who knows how far AEW could have gone? Because the fans were such a big part, even more than WWE, in my opinion, because WWE crowds were hit and miss. Sometimes they were dead. Even with 15,000 people in the building, sometimes it felt like nobody was there, especially in the third hour of Raw. But with AEW, the fans were so passionate about AEW. They were so into the action that it really made the show all that more entertaining. It was great as it was, but the fans made it even better. And I talk about Brodie Lee. If he had showed up in Rochester, New York on March 18th, the place would have come unglued. The people would have just gone absolutely nuts for him, and that would have raised his star power even more. But unfortunately, we did not get to see that. Christian Ramirez says it's his birthday, so very happy birthday to Christian. Thank you for tuning in on your birthday, and you got some hopefully better days ahead coming into 2021. I do want to wish everybody a happy new year, and we're all in this together. Hopefully 2021 will see things on the upswing for most of us. 2020 definitely was a very roller coaster of a year. Now, chat room, keep in mind you guys can send me questions. This is NoDQ&A video live. I will answer your questions. Anything about the year 2020 from WWE and TNA, anything you would like to ask me about wrestling, go ahead and throw it in the chat room. WWE introduced the Thunderdome in August, and we had SummerSlam, and that helped out WWE a lot. The ratings, they stopped declining, and if anything, they did go up a little bit for a period of time. Smackdown has been pretty consistent. Raw did continue to drop, and they did hit their lowest number a couple weeks ago, but WWE also has the football competition, and the numbers should start picking up in a couple of weeks. The Thunderdome, not perfect, not ideal. I'd still rather have fans, but WWE came up with something very visually appealing, and it's really helped for the show. Any kind of atmosphere is better than none. Caleb Jacobs sent in another $12.36 super chat. Thank you, Caleb. He says, Happy New Year, everyone. In my opinion, Drew McIntyre is the wrestler of 2020. And question, do you think Jeff Hardy will join Matt Hardy in AEW? Okay, so regarding Drew McIntyre, I agree. Definitely the superstar of the year. He won the Male Superstar of the Year poll on NoDQ.com this year in the year-end awards, and rightfully so. He had to hold up WWE. He was the guy that was the top star, the champion, representing the company during a global pandemic, something he was not anticipating. He had to step up and be the guy during that period, and he did a damn great job, in my opinion. Drew McIntyre, just a class act, and I felt so bad for him that he lost out on that WrestleMania moment. It just really sucks. And Caleb, I'll get to your other question here in just a second. I was actually just responding to your comment. I'll get to your question in one moment. Brandon Crabtree with a $2 super chat. Thank you very much for that, Brendan. And Mike Nixon with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. He says, Happy New Year to you and Caitlin and Aaron. Did you hear they retired the AEW title and Brodie Lee is the lifetime champion? Well, Brodie Lee Jr. The title is not actually retired. It's just the design. That TNT championship design has been retired. That title that was given to Brodie Lee Jr. on Dynamite was the actual TNT championship, and they will be working on a new title. I'm guessing they're working on it right now. That's what is going on with that. The TNT title is still a thing. Darby Allin is still the champion. It's still going to continue on. They're just changing the design, and I think it's fine. I was not a fan of the original title design, but then when it was finished, I thought it looked pretty cool, but we'll see what they come up with. I'm sure whatever it is, really it doesn't matter. You know, I think what they did for Brodie Lee Jr. was awesome, giving him the title. I cannot complain about it. Now, to get back to Caleb Jacobs' question about Jeff Hardy, I don't think so. He's got a good spot in WWE, and of the two Hardy brothers, Jeff was always the one that WWE saw more star power in, not Matt. Matt was the guy that was really over, but the company did not see him as somebody who could be world champion and be that top guy. Jeff Hardy, though, WWE has always been high on him. They always considered him to be the star of the two. And When we get crowds again, Jeff Hardy wants to have No More Words as his music, and he will be really over. He'll get a big push whenever that day comes that we have fans again. For now, he's going to be teamed up with Matt Riddle. He's tapping out to Lashley every week, but let's be real. People will forget about that. Jeff Hardy will continue to get a big push. He's going to get the big money, and I think he just wants to have one really good run before he retires. Maybe 4 or 5 years down the line, he could show up in AEW, but will Matt Hardy still be there? Who knows? But yeah, I do not see Jeff Hardy going to AEW anytime soon. And Rohan J says, should Samoa Joe return? If he's healthy, if Samoa Joe can be cleared, then yes, absolutely. I want him to come back and wrestle again. He did win the NoDQ.com Announcer of the Year, which is awesome. I think he deserves it, although I would probably still go with Mauro Ranallo, even though he was only around for part of the year. But Joe has done a fantastic job, in my opinion, but I still want to see him come back and wrestle and get in the mix again. I just hope that he can actually do it. I do not want him to come back if he's not healthy to do it. And Michael Gonzalez says, worst creative decision of 2020. The Fiend losing to Goldberg at Super Showdown. Bottom line. That was the worst. Retribution was terrible. Terrible storyline. Did nothing for those guys, but I think on a higher level, Goldberg beating The Fiend, the hottest act in the company, just really killed the momentum of The Fiend, in my opinion. Was not a fan of that at all. And to me, that was the worst creative decision because it was such a big deal and the potential of The Fiend to be like the new Undertaker. People have always compared The Fiend to the Undertaker. And people were saying for years, like, who's going to be the next Undertaker? Could have been The Fiend. But you took that away when you have a 50-year-old guy beating him in a 4-minute match, when Seth Rollins could not put him away with 10 stomps or whatever it was at that Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. Psycho Jet Black left in a $5 super chat. Thank you so much for that, Psycho Jet Black. He says, who will be the next wrestler to win their first WWE Universal Championship in 2021? Also, will you run for President of the United States in 2024? No, I will not be running for president. Maybe Riff Aronson will, because he's controversial, and apparently if you're controversial, that gets you far in the world of politics. But no, I will not be doing it. And plus, I am not capable of lying. Well, I am. We all are. But lying is tough for me. And you got to be a good liar if you want to be president of the United States. And by the way, this goes to both sides. I'm not just saying one side lies. They both do. Just to make it clear out there so I'm not picking one side. Anyways, enough politics. Psycho Jet Black, your question about who will be the first-time WWE Universal Champion in 2021. I would say Keith Lee is a really good pick. I don't think he's going to win it in the near future. But by the end of the year, I could see Keith Lee possibly winning it. Maybe Big E. A lot of people want to see Big E get that main event push. Time will tell, but I think Big E is a reasonable choice. Matt Riddle, if the rumors are true that WWE is high on him, and Hulk Hogan himself said he sees big things in Matt Riddle, and I trust Hogan's judgment. One of the biggest draws of all time, arguably the biggest next to Austin. I mean, definitely long-term biggest draw. Austin was a bigger draw in the short term, but Hogan, his longevity as a top guy, he's seen everything. He knows what works, and he sees something in Riddle. Riddle has a decent chance. I just hope WWE will move beyond the goofy stoner gimmick and give him a bit of a chance to show his more serious side. And Mike Nixon with a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Mike. He says, do you think we will get special entrants in the Royal Rumble match this year? I think we will. I mean, why not? It's the Royal Rumble, and I don't see the big deal in bringing back guys for a one-off. And I think it would be a nice gesture too. During the pandemic, people need work, and you can give somebody a nice payday to just come out there and be a surprise. To me, it's easy. WWE, they have the money to do it. They can bring in some people for one-off appearances, maybe even bring back a couple of legends. It's fun. It's fun when we get some surprises in the Rumble. I mean, to me, that's always been one of the most appealing things about the Royal Rumble, when we get to see some surprises and get to see some returns of people we haven't seen in a very long time. I think they should do it every year. They should always have like 10 open spots for surprises and bring in some people from the past so we can hear their music and, you know, have that nostalgic moment. It's fun. And you just do it once a year. I definitely think they should, and they probably will. I would be surprised if they didn't bring in any surprises, because people like it. People like the surprises, and I think WWE is well aware of that. Oofman says, I'll run for president and have Aaron Rift as my running mate. Well, thank you for that. Makes my workload a little bit easier, so I could still reap the benefits and not have to do as much work. Caleb Jacobs with another $5 super chat. Thank you so much, Caleb. I really do appreciate it. And again, it was an honor meeting you in Portland a few years back, and I hope you're doing well, you and your mom and the rest of your family. He says, I just ordered a Hurt Business shirt, in my opinion, faction of the year. Again, I agree with you. Hurt Business, they won the NoDQ.com year-end award for faction of the year. I completely agree with that. MVP did such a fantastic job this year. What a comeback, and he was in the Royal Rumble as a surprise entrant. What a return for him. We all thought, oh, it's just going to be a one-off, you know, maybe he'll come back and do the MVP lounge. But then he got with Bobby Lashley, and he got Shelton Benjamin television time again. Cedric Alexander had a new lease on life. I mean, great stuff here. What a faction. Bobby Lashley taken seriously for the first time since returning to WWE, rebounding after that Lana storyline, which, okay, so first time ever in the history of the NoDQ.com year-end awards. 2 years in a row, the same storyline won the award for worst storyline of the year. 2 years in a row, the Bobby Lashley, Lana, Rusev love triangle won the year-end award. It went into 2 years. It started the end of 2019 and went into 2020, so it was eligible for both years, and it won both years. And I was surprised by that, because I think Retribution far worse than that. I got some entertainment value out of that Lana storyline. I know a lot of people hated it, but I at least found parts of it entertaining. The Retribution stuff has been awful, cringy, hasn't done anything for anybody. Not even good entertainment, in my opinion. Sorry, T-Bar. And I love Dominik Dijakovic, too. I just think it's a terrible storyline. I feel bad for all of them that they're going through this crap. Mercedes Martinez, she dodged a bullet with that one. Got back to NXT, and good for her. And Mike Nixon with a $5 super chat. Thank you again, Mike. I appreciate it. He says, and my last question, if you were booking WrestleMania this year, what matches would you book? Great question, Mike. First off, it's probably out of my hands, but I would do The Rock versus Roman Reigns, but it's just not the same thing without fans, and there's so many variables with that one. But if I could have it my way, I would want to see Roman Reigns versus The Rock. Like, to me, April is the peak of it, because I don't think you can drag this head of the table storyline for another year. So you got to pull the trigger on it. Maybe they could wait till SummerSlam. If not The Rock, I'd love to see John Cena in that spot. Daniel Bryan would be cool. I'm fine with Daniel Bryan in that role. Drew McIntyre, I'd love to see him up against maybe Sheamus. I'd love to see Sheamus get that opportunity. I would be totally fine with that. Or save Braun Strowman for WrestleMania, do Sheamus first. You want to have a really strong opponent for Drew. Maybe Brock Lesnar in a rematch. Maybe add Keith Lee to the mix, do a triple threat match to give Keith Lee the rub. I want to see Edge versus The Fiend. I just wish The Fiend was not being put down in these storylines so much, because Edge versus The Fiend would be awesome. I really don't want to see Edge versus Orton again. As great as Randy Orton has been, I want to see something different. I want to see Edge versus The Fiend or Edge versus Seth Rollins. I want to see a different match for Edge. And tag teams, I want to see the Usos reunited versus the Street Profits for the tag titles. I think that would be an awesome match. Those would be my top ones. And for the women, I want to see Alexa Bliss go for the title. I want to see her versus Asuka at WrestleMania. I'm just saying it right now. I want to see Alexa Bliss with her new character going for the title. She won the award for Female of the Year, which surprised me. I think Alexa Bliss has been awesome with this new character, but I thought Bayley would win this for sure. It actually shocked me that Alexa Bliss beat out both Bayley and Sasha Banks in the No DQ award for the Female Superstar of the Year. If Alexa Bliss was doing this character the entire year, I'd say, yeah, Alexa Bliss. But she was only doing it for like 3 months. So I do not agree with that, how the voting went. Alexa Bliss, though, 2021, I think is going to be her year if I had to make a prediction on it. And the one and only Caleb Jacobs with another $5. Thank you so much, Caleb. He says, fun fact, Bobby Lashley has been United States champion for 4 months and 1 day. It was an honor to meet you at the Oregon Zoo. Yes, Caleb and I actually met up at the Oregon Zoo in Portland. That was a fun day. Yeah, Lashley has done a great job as U.S. champion, and MVP has been a big part of it. Lashley, I mean, he's been booked very strongly, which is something we don't see so often in WWE. Lashley has been booked how a champion should be booked. Dominant and a guy that you take seriously. Not many guys get that kind of push these days. A lot of times it's just 50-50 booking, people trading wins. But other than that loss to Drew McIntyre, I don't think Lashley has lost since being aligned with MVP. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. And hampconnor with a $5 super chat, thank you, Hamp, says, do you think they need to come up with a brand new title instead of another TNT championship? I've never been a fan of it, or TV titles in general. I'd be okay if they changed it up. I get it, you want to have a secondary title in addition to the world title. One idea that I always had, going back to my old video game league, NoDQ&AV, this idea of an interactive title where the fans determine every match. The fans vote on stipulations, they vote on opponents, and the fans have control of how the matches are booked. Basically, the fans book the matches for the championship. So I'd love to see an idea like that, or just something different that we haven't seen. But I'm okay with them keeping the TNT title also. Whatever they do is fine with me. I also would like to see some trios titles, especially when you have a lot of 6-man matches in AEW and in WWE as well. I'm surprised WWE never did the trios titles, maybe because it isn't Vince's idea, and if it's not Vince's idea, you can't do it. Psycho Jet Black sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you, Psycho Jet Black. I appreciate it. He says, do you think Vince McMahon does not want another Rock-like superstar because they will eventually leave and he hates losing control of people? Yeah, unfortunately, I think that is part of Vince's mentality, because he got burned in the mid-90s when Hulk Hogan went to WCW and Randy Savage did. Even though Vince felt that they were over the hill, he wanted to push youth, and he had Randy Savage as an announcer. If you're Randy Savage, you still want to go. You still think you can compete at a high level. So he went to WCW. And Vince, I think he does not want anybody to be bigger than the company. And if you go back to when Hulk Hogan turned heel, he cut that promo at Bash at the Beach 96, and he said, I'm bigger than that whole organization. And Vince probably took that line personally. A few years later, that Raw where Vince pissed his pants, the Bang 316 with Austin, Vince cut this promo, and he had everybody out there by the ring, and he's like, there's no one man bigger than the WWE. To me, that was a shoot. That was Vince saying how he really felt. Nobody is bigger than WWE. And I think deep down, he does not want somebody to get too big to where they have the kind of leverage where they can leave and go to another company and help elevate that company and have a repeat of the Monday Night Wars. As good as it was for business, I think Vince just has that mentality. He wants to stay on top. He doesn't want anybody coming up near the peak and threatening his top position again. You know, it's an ego thing. Not just money, but ego. So thank you for that. And sorry, guys, I'm catching up here with the questions. I'm going to try to get to as many as possible. Brendan Crabtree with a $2 super chat says, what do you see for the Fiend next year? Great question. I'm wondering if we're going to see him with a little bit of a change with his attire. Undertaker would do it. We would see changes with the Undertaker. Maybe we'll see the same thing with the Fiend. After getting burned, you know, he can change up his look, maybe have a new mask, a new costume. And I think it's probably a good thing. You know, after this past year, I think it's a good idea to freshen it up a little bit. But yeah, I hope the Fiend continues on, and I do want to see him against Edge at some point. You know, to me, that's a dream match. That's something I really want to see. My buddy Josh Mansfield with a $5 super chat says, rough year, but looking forward to the next. Thoughts on Evolution or Hurt Business versus Undisputed Era for WrestleMania. Happy New Year to you and the Queen. I appreciate it, Josh Mansfield, and thank you for the super chat. I would love to see the Hurt Business versus Undisputed Era. I'd love to see Undisputed Era in a big WrestleMania match. You know, they've done it all in NXT. I've been saying for the longest time, I want to see them on the main roster. I want to see them in a new environment, something we haven't seen before. It's just like you're on a treadmill in NXT. They're great and all, don't get me wrong, but I want to see them against some new people in a new environment. And I know people are like, you know, they'll be booked poorly and all this stuff, but not necessarily. They could even come in and beat Hurt Business and, you know, still be a credible force on the main roster. But yeah, I'd love to see that for WrestleMania. You know, faction versus faction. I'd much rather see that than like Hurt Business versus Retribution or some crap like that. Thank you for the super chat. Awesome JL94 sent in a very generous $9.99 super chat. Thank you for that. He says, hey Aaron, 2020 is the first year I have not watched one single Raw or Smackdown. I've been keeping up with the product by watching your reviews. Keep up the great work as always. Again, I really do appreciate that. SmackDown's worth watching in my opinion, but I totally understand not watching it and wanting to just follow what's going on with the reviews or maybe watching the YouTube clips. But SmackDown's a good show more times than not. Raw, very intelligent to not be watching the 3-hour Raw. I applaud you for that one, definitely. And the one and only Caleb Jacobs with a $5 super chat says, and thank you, Caleb. He says, last super chat of the night, I promise, LOL. He says, didn't they kind of have the Internet Championship with Zack Ryder? Perfect example. Yeah, they did. Well, it wasn't really official. It was Zack Ryder's thing, and Zack Ryder paid the price for trying to get over on his own with his Z Long Island story. But yeah, something like that, you know, interactive champion, internet champion, something where the fans control the matches, the fans are the bookers. Why not? Let the fans have some control. Vince would probably hate it, but in AEW, like, that seems perfect because AEW very much listens to fan feedback, and, you know, I think it would satisfy the fans if they got to feel like they're making decisions in the company. They're the authority. So I really like the idea of a championship where the fans get to book the matches and you can have polls on social media and have people vote on matches and stipulations and whatnot. But yeah, I don't know if they're going to do it or not. I think it's a good idea though, personally. Not just because I came up with the idea. Well, I'm sure other people have, but I had that idea well over a decade ago. Back, you know, for those of you that watched NoDQ&AV, you know what I'm talking about. Hampconnor with a $5 super chat. Thank you very much for that, Hamp. Do you think Drew McIntyre, nice, there's a 2020 moment. I mean, that had to be the funniest botch of the year with the Drew McIntyre line on Raw. Do you think Drew McIntyre would have won the title if Lesnar wasn't planning to stay home during the pandemic? Yeah, I think so. I think WWE was planning to try and build Drew McIntyre as the next big thing in WWE. I mean, they had him eliminate Brock in the Rumble, and Drew looked very strong, and they were trying to build a new star with Drew McIntyre. I definitely think he was going to be pushed as the top guy and probably would have been Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. Nobody knows for sure, and Vince, maybe he had an idea and maybe he would have changed his mind the day of the show. But yeah, I definitely think, once the pandemic got going, it was a no-brainer because there's no way WWE is going to keep the title on Lesnar when Lesnar might be done until the pandemic's over. And then on top of that, you don't want to end WrestleMania on a negative note. You want to have a happy ending with the pandemic. So as soon as the pandemic, I'm like, yeah, no chance that McIntyre is losing at that point. And the This Guy Experience with a $2 super chat. The This Guy Experience with $2 says, you should do a pay to call in every dollar talking minutes. Well, people did that back in the day, the old 900 lines. Did anybody actually call those, like the Mean Gene hotline? I don't think I ever did. I think I would have gotten in trouble if I did. But I never really asked my parents to call. I never really had interest in calling those hotlines. And yes, Soufman, 2 years ago, we were told we were the authority. And yeah, well, we kind of saw how that all worked out for everybody. And Arrow 2600 says, bring back the Super Chat Championship. I just might. I might bring it back. After a while, it seems to run its course. The gimmick gets old, but I may bring it back in 2020. It's still around. It's still in the NoDQ warehouse. I'll let you know if I decide to bring it back. Steve-O says, I tried to get my friends to call the 900 numbers. Never happened. My parents always said no, LOL. And yes, Oofman Entertainment, 25-time Super Chat champion. So very much appreciated. That helped put my future kids through college, and no future kids anytime soon, in case people took that the wrong way. And Christian says, your favorite pay-per-views and storylines of the year. Favorite pay-per-view, AEW produced a lot of great shows. Revolution was my favorite, and I picked Revolution because it had fans, but Full Gear was fantastic. Double or Nothing was fantastic. And Royal Rumble was a fantastic pay-per-view. Royal Rumble actually won the NoDQ.com poll for pay-per-view of the year. And you know what? You had the fans there, and you had some great moments. You had Edge returning, which was huge, and people were very satisfied with the Royal Rumble matches. I was too, especially the men's match with Drew McIntyre winning. It was a very fun show to watch. I don't remember any bad matches on the show. I thought the Royal Rumble was one of the better ones in WWE history. So yeah, Royal Rumble's up there, and WrestleMania, for what it was, WWE put a great effort out there. Unfortunately, it's not one of those shows where I feel like I would ever go back and watch because it's just hard to watch a show with no fans. But, it helped me forget about what was going on in the world. And as far as I'm concerned, WWE succeeded in entertaining me on those two nights, I should say. So thank you for that question. I do appreciate it. Jeremy Dorset says, hey, Aaron, do you see John Cena returning and going the Ric Flair route with an IC title reign and one last WWE title reign? Absolutely. I definitely think we will see John Cena come back and try to go for one more title. He has that record, and I think it's just a matter of time that he comes back. He might not return until the pandemic's over, but I'd love to see John Cena come back, go for the 17th title. Easy storyline right there, trying to break the record, have one final run. I definitely see that happening at some point. I would be shocked if we did not see that happen. And hampconnor with a $2 super chat. Thank you for that, Hamp. He says, besides No Mercy, what's your favorite Nintendo 64 game? All right, this is a little bit in the past, but I will answer real quick. Hey, WrestleMania 2000, in my opinion, was a great game. No Mercy was just basically taking what worked from that game and just adding on to it. And really, you know, WrestleMania 2000 was a sequel to WCW NWO Revenge. You know, same gameplay and style. They just added more features. And WCW NWO Revenge was a lot of fun too. Really, all those games, even WCW versus NWO World Tour, which was the most primitive of the games, that one was still really fun too. I loved all those THQ Nintendo 64 games. All those were great in my opinion. But yeah, I would probably go with WrestleMania 2000 as my favorite of the bunch. But, you know, all of them were awesome in my opinion. Let's see what other questions we have here. Rohan J wants to know about Goldberg in 2021. Yeah, we're probably going to see him. You know, I was asked earlier about WrestleMania matches. I'm okay with Roman Reigns versus Goldberg. I mean, I'd prefer if they just got it out of the way. But, yeah, they might end up doing it for WrestleMania. And it's going to be what it's going to be. Spear, kick out, Roman wins, 4-minute match, 3-minute match, whatever. I mean, they might as well do it because they hyped it up and then never delivered. But, yeah, I'd rather see John Cena come back and fight Roman Reigns. Or just do Roman Reigns versus Daniel Bryan. But knowing WWE, I think it's going to be Roman versus Goldberg. Because Vince is going to have that attitude. We never delivered on the match we promised. We have to deliver it. And, of course, you know, Goldberg WrestleMania. So, yeah, I think we're going to see old Whisker Biscuit one more time in 2021 for at least one more match. And Anthony Matzel with a $5 super chat. Thank you very much for that, Anthony. He says, out of the three, who's more likely to wrestle in WWE again? Chris Jericho, CM Punk, or The Rock? Very good question there. And it's a hard one to answer because anything can happen. But if I had to put money down on it, you asked me to bet on it, I'll say The Rock. I would be shocked if The Rock doesn't wrestle again at some point. Like, I think he's got to have one more match. I think he's got to come back and do at least one more. Face Roman at some point. CM Punk, I think we'll see him again. Maybe not in the ring, but I could see CM Punk going into the Hall of Fame and showing up. Same thing with Chris Jericho. I don't know. Jericho might wrestle again. I think there's a decent chance all three of them will wrestle again at some point. I mean, it's WWE. Shawn Michaels came back and wrestled again. Bret Hart kind of wrestled again. So, yeah, I think there's a decent chance all three of them will wrestle again at some point. But I'll tell you what, of the three of them, I think it'll be Rock first if all three of them do end up wrestling again. And the Cleaver Colin Andrew with a $3 super chat. Thank you for that, Colin. He says, Happy New Year, No DQ family. Back to work I go. Well, sorry you had to work on New Year's Eve. I was hoping you'd get a day off. Colin, you're always working, but I admire that, you know. That's a sign of a person with real character who's always grinding and collecting that paycheck. So good for you, Colin Andrew. And I don't really consider this work, you know. I'm having fun with it. This is something that I'm passionate about, so I'm glad to be able to do it with you guys. And I'm grateful that you guys have continued to follow and support the channel for all these years. Psycho Jet Black with the $2 super chat says, who will be in the Hall of Fame first, Jim Cornette or Vince Russo? Probably Cornette, if he even goes in, which he should, in my opinion. I know people have mixed feelings about him. He's a very polarizing figure, and some would argue that he's out of touch and all that, but great manager and great wrestling personality. So yeah, Cornette, Russo, I mean, I would not mind it. I don't really have a problem with it. I think Vince Russo had a lot of great ideas and was a factor in the success of the Attitude Era. He wasn't the whole thing, but I think he did play a role in the success of it. WCW, you know, there's all the different opinions on that. Some would argue WCW was already the Titanic that hit the iceberg when he got there, and he did what he could, and he was handcuffed by standards and practices. So, yeah, I'm okay with Russo going in, but I think Cornette will be in first if either of them go in at all. And This Guy Experience with a $5 super chat says, do you think Vince McMahon stiffed WWE creative for the next generation by having 97% focus on Roman instead of building up contenders for the future? I think the ideal scenario is to work on building up new contenders while you're pushing Roman. I do think the focus should be on Roman. He's the best thing about WWE television right now. So I would focus on him, but at the same time, you don't want to neglect your rising stars. You want to start building up for the future so you have somebody after Roman. That's the real key. And also build up somebody for Roman now, so when Roman is still on top, you have somebody who's ready to challenge him, and you can start building up a new feud. Part of the problem with Roman Reigns is that he really doesn't have somebody at that high level to feud with other than Drew McIntyre, who's the champion on the other brand. You need somebody to be able to be elevated to Roman's level. So it's really critical to build up somebody strong and get that person ready for Reigns. And right now, I just don't know who that is. You know, Daniel Bryan and Reigns will have a great match, I'm sure, but you know, Daniel Bryan isn't going to be that guy that's going to be Roman's rival. He's probably going to put over Roman and focus on his two kids and start winding down and doing more of a creative behind-the-scenes role in WWE. And hampconnor with a $2 super chat says, Hall of Fame first, Chris Benoit or Marty Jannetty? Well, I think neither will end up in, but Marty Jannetty, maybe the Rockers go in, but I don't know. I don't know about that one. Benoit, you know, pretty much 0.0000000000001 chance of going in. Anthony Matsell with a $2 super chat. Thank you for that, Anthony. I appreciate it. He says, what do you think Roman's ceiling will be in the end? Great question. I think that Roman can possibly be at Cena's level, if not greater. This character is working out really well for him right now. But again, part of what made Austin's career so epic, it was the feuds. The feuds that he had with Bret Hart and The Undertaker and The Rock and Triple H. Steve Austin had some great talent to work with, and you had these great feuds with these guys. Roman needs those big names to feud with to really cement his legacy and really reach that peak as far as his potential goes with this character. And Psycho Jet Black with the $2 super chat says, will John Cena come back as a heel character? No. If John Cena comes back, he'll probably feud with Roman Reigns, you know, try to get revenge from the No Mercy pay-per-view a few years back and say, you know what, Roman, I thought you were going to be the guy that would have dignity and would carry on the company with me being gone, but turns out you got a little bit over the top with your ego, and I got to put you back in check. You know, I think that's going to be John Cena's role, and, you know, he's coming back. He's not going to be a full-timer again. The ship sailed with the heel turn, although we all thought that with Roman that there was no way they were ever going to turn him, and they did, and it worked out. So I guess never say never, but I think it's probably not going to happen. It would be a nice touch, but I mean, how would you even make that work? And could you even make it believable? They made it believable with Reigns, but Roman, yeah, I don't know. And Tripton Puffinbarger with a comment here. He says, hey Aaron, what do you think was the botch of the year in a match? Probably something with Nia Jax. There was one moment on Raw several weeks ago where she was running around and then she just ran to the outside, over the ropes to the outside, and I have no idea what she was doing. I cannot even describe it. There were a couple of botches, and they were scary ones, like when she almost injured Kairi Sane. Actually, I think she did hurt her. But yeah, that was brutal. And there was a funny one with Ken Shamrock. I think it was Slammiversary, one of those pay-per-views. Maybe it was Bound for Glory. I'm not sure. But yeah, still the funniest one for me of the year would have to be the Drew McIntyre line. To me, that was the funniest botch. You know, I know that's not something in the ring. And the ones in the ring tend to, I guess they're funny at times, but sometimes I'm also like, well, why are we laughing at somebody possibly getting hurt during a match? You know, the ones that are funny are the ones like Titus O'Neil with the sliding, where you know the guy didn't get hurt, but it's just a funny moment in a match. So I try not to think of the ones where people actually were potentially at risk of getting injured. hampconnor says, what's your favorite non-wrestling game? Super Mario Odyssey, I think, is my all-time favorite now. Just a phenomenal game. Absolutely recommend it. Nintendo's put out some great games, though. And Anthony Matsell says, can you see Undertaker coming back as an announcer for big pay-per-views down the road? I feel as though his voice is unique and his perspective and opinions would be an amazing touch. I don't think so. To me, that would be strange to hear Undertaker doing commentary, but I guess it's hard to judge it without actually hearing it. So, you know, don't knock it until you've heard it first. I just can't imagine it. Like, to me, it's so bizarre because I'm so used to Undertaker as an in-ring performer. Having him do commentary just would not feel right to me. But could work. A lot of wrestlers transition well as far as going from in the ring to doing commentary. Josh Mansfield says, who was your favorite ring announcer this year? Justin Roberts. I think he's done a great job in AEW. The only thing I don't understand is him doing Kenny Omega's entrance after Omega turned heel. But I guess Justin Roberts, if he's told to do something by Kenny Omega, he's got to do it. But yeah, I think Justin Roberts has done fantastic. And R Silva 10 says, your favorite wrestler right now? Probably Drew McIntyre. He's done a great job as champion. I've really enjoyed his work. And AJ Styles continues to do really well. Daniel Bryan, but Roman Reigns, as far as character goes, Roman has been amazing. And in AEW, Moxley has done a great job. MJF is on the rise. A lot of guys putting out some great work for sure. And Psycho Jet Black with a $2 super chat says, when did you realize 2020 was going to suck? Well, I think everybody felt that way initially when the pandemic started. But I was one of those ones that thought, well, maybe, you know, this will be over soon, and by June we'll be back to normal. By the time June hit and we were still in the Performance Center, and then there was talk that WWE was going to try to resume events again, and then that got pushed back. And by the summer, I'm like, well, yeah, I think this year is a wash. It's going to be what it is. The pandemic's not ending anytime soon. So really, around the summer, I just came to terms that the rest of 2020, it's going to be what it is, and we're going to have to deal with it. And Jeremy Dorset says, do you see Sable going in the Hall of Fame? Yes, I do. And not just because she's married to Brock Lesnar, but that helps, you know. She's married to Brock, and if you're on good terms with the company, then that's going to work in your favor. But she did do a lot. She did accomplish a lot in WWE. So, yeah, I think she will go in. The one and only Caleb Jacobs with a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Caleb. Welcome back. He says, I don't hate Nia. Becky became the man because of her. Well, that's certainly one way to look at it and one way to put a positive spin on Nia Jax. And I really don't hate her either. I just don't like how she's been booked by WWE over the years. And I think you should, for the most part, keep her away from the mic. But I think when Nia Jax was first called up, she had a lot of potential. And then they had her lose at that Survivor Series. And to me, it was never the same after that. Like, she shouldn't have been submitting in a Survivor Series elimination match that early into her run. I thought that was a huge mistake to have that happen. She could have been like the female Andre the Giant, like unstoppable monster who runs over everybody. And then she turned face, and that really did not work for me. So yeah, I think WWE made a lot of mistakes with the way her character was booked. And Anthony Matsell with a $5 super chat. Thank you very much for that, Anthony. I appreciate it. He says, what do you see happening with AJ Styles' bodyguard, and did you know of him before he debuted? I am not familiar with him or what he did before WWE. I don't know how far he's going to go because it seems like he's very limited in what he can do. WWE is not having him do much, and he was one of those guys that reportedly has been sent to the Performance Center for more training. I think unless he shows a lot of improvement, he's not going to have a very long stint in WWE. He's going to be like Great Khali, although I don't even see him going that far. Great Khali still baffles me how he actually won the world title. But yeah, now with the talent pool in WWE, I mean, the talent pool is pretty strong in 2006, 2007, but it's stronger now. And I don't think they're ever going to give him that kind of push. A guy who they can't really rely on as champion to deliver in the ring. Like, I think if you're going to be world champion, you got to be somebody who can deliver in the ring. If this guy can't cut it, then it's probably not going to happen. So I could see him having a bit of a run for a while as the bodyguard, but whenever him and AJ split, that could be the end of him. He might have a little bit more of a shelf life doing some comedy stuff, kind of like Great Khali. But yeah, apparently he was a basketball player, but I do not know that for a fact, so don't quote me on that. And Tripped In Puffin Barger says, what do you think will happen when Undertaker dies? Well, I'm sure WWE will do a very significant tribute to him. You know, it will be a very big one. Same thing with Vince, and I do not want it to happen with Vince. You know, I don't want to see anybody die, but as people have said, nothing's going to change when he's in charge, and he's probably not going to be giving up his position if he can help it. But yeah, Undertaker, that will be a rough one. I mean, they're all rough, but that one especially, considering everything he has accomplished, like that will be a really tough time. But hopefully that's not for a very long time. Hopefully he lives another 30, 40 years and he can have a happy retirement. I mean, I hope that for the guy. After everything he put in, I hope he's able to enjoy a nice long retirement. And Adrian says, what a stupid, pointless question. None of the questions are dumb. All the questions are good. Don't put down the questions. And Curtis Butler says, Omis, the bodyguard for AJ, keep him as is. Big Giants should not be overexposed. Yeah, once he starts doing a lot of moves, he's going to be exposed. And I think the key is to have that illusion that this guy can really do a lot of damage. He looks intimidating, so you just have him out there, and you know that saying less is more. And I think that's the idea with him. You're not going to be able to do it forever, though. But I think you can get maybe 6 months to a year mileage out of him. And if he improves, then we'll see where it goes from there. And Psycho Jet Black says, would you like to see AJ Lee versus Ronda Rousey at some point? I don't know if she's ever coming back. If she did come back, yeah, I'd love to see it. I think there's a lot of matches for AJ Lee if she ever did come back to WWE, and I feel like she has no interest in doing that. But if she did come back, her versus Becky Lynch, her versus Charlotte, her versus Asuka, her versus Shayna Baszler. I mean, she has a whole new crop of women she could compete against, and Ronda Rousey. The question is, would WWE push her at that level? Would they want her, and would they want her in that position, or would they just bring her back and put her in the mid card? Who knows? But if AJ Lee wanted to come back and I was in charge of WWE, I'd bring her back in a heartbeat. I'd put her right in there with all the top women and have all these fresh feuds. But yeah, I don't know if it's going to happen. Anthony Matsell says, I feel as though while the in-ring talent is good, the problem with WWE is the look of the wrestlers. I feel as though they need more larger-than-life type of people rather than the 220-pound dudes. Your thoughts? I agree with you. I am 100% in agreement with you. As much as I love AEW, and they have some amazing, talented wrestlers, a lot of them look like indie wrestlers. And it's hard to really get behind them when they look like us. And I'm not advocating performance enhancements. But yeah, if these guys were in the gym more and they were looking like stars, then it would be more compelling to see these guys that are not average, you know? It's like a superhero. Superman, he's this big muscular superhero. If he was a little skinny 5'5" guy, like, it'd be hard to get into him. He's Superman. He's larger than life. And, you know, Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, these guys, they looked the part. Drew McIntyre right now looks the part. He looks like a guy that if you saw him in a room, you would take notice. A lot of these guys in AEW, also NXT, if they walked into a room, it'd be hard to notice that guy. He would just stand in the crowd with everybody else. So I totally understand that. And there is room for people that look like you and me. Look at Jeff Hardy. It worked out for him because we could identify with him. Mick Foley. These were guys that were fans. They were doing the backyard wrestling, and we could live vicariously through them. It worked, but not everybody can do that. Those guys were exceptions to the rule. You can't do that with the entire roster. Those guys were special because they were exceptions to the rule. Oofman Entertainment with a $5 super chat says, how low do the ratings have to sink for there to be major change? Do you think someone on the board will ever step up and actually want Vince removed? You would have to ask that question to the USA Network executives. WWE still performs well by basic cable standards. They still do good numbers, and USA Network doesn't have great numbers. WWE helps the USA Network. Even with the lower numbers, WWE is still a big property for the USA Network. They're not thrilled with the numbers, but yeah, I think it would take more for them to really be concerned. Now, a year or two down the line, if the decline continues, who knows? The contract is for a few more years. It's hard to say. I feel like the numbers will go back up once the pandemic is over. You know, people will be wanting to see live wrestling again and see the wrestling shows with fans, and there'll be some renewed interest, and maybe WWE will luck into something with a new star. It's really hard to say, but yeah, if the numbers continue to decline for the next 2 or 3 years and it's time to renew, anything can happen. Psycho Jet Black with a $2 super chat. Thank you for that, and thank you, Wolfman. Says, who in the Attitude Era should have been a bigger star? I'd say Ken Shamrock. Shamrock, to me, was the real deal. Again, another guy who looked the part. This guy jacked, and he could kick ass. Like, that to me is a great pro wrestler. Somebody who looks like a guy that I would not want to run into in a dark alleyway. I don't want to mess around with Ken Shamrock. Like, that guy looks like he could kill me. That's a great pro wrestler. His promos were not good, though. And I think that probably hurt him in WWE, but he was innovative. Another guy that should be in the WWE Hall of Fame. He's in the Impact Wrestling one. That was a highlight of 2020 to see Shamrock get recognized and have The Rock do a speech for him. That was really cool. I would have liked to have seen Shamrock get a bigger push during the Attitude Era. Unfortunately, he passed away, Owen Hart. I think Owen Hart would have had a renewed lease in WWE. I know all the talk is that Owen would have faded out of wrestling. He was going to retire and be with his family. But, man, I think Owen would have had a spark when Kurt Angle came in and Chris Jericho and Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero. The work rate shot up in WWE around early 2000 when all those guys came in. Man, Owen would have had a new crop of guys to work with, and I think he would have had a new lease on life. I think he would have got a renewed push, and we would have seen Owen Hart back to his prime again. He was in that pretty lousy storyline with Deborah and Jeff Jarrett and doing the whole Blue Blazer thing. But I think he would have had a big comeback in 2000 if he had lived. And yeah, I don't know what happened with Shamrock, why WWE never brought him back. Uthman says that he apparently spoke crap about Triple H and Stephanie over the years. Who knows, but something must have happened because Shamrock has never been brought back for the Legend shows, and Shamrock deserves better. Shamrock deserves to be recognized in WWE as a guy who really helped elevate submission wrestling in the company. He's the reason people started tapping out in matches, and there was more of an emphasis put on submission wrestling. I think Shamrock was a big part of that in WWE, very influential. And John Mansfield with a $5 super chat says, and thank you, Josh, he says, who would your top 5 active wrestlers be in WWE right now? Mine are Drew, AJ, Finn, Miz, and Roman Reigns. Right now, Drew McIntyre, Roman Reigns, AJ Styles. Probably not Miz right now. I feel bad for the Miz for saying that. Sheamus has been doing great. Sheamus is one of those guys I think has really been overlooked by some fans. Like, he is so good in the ring, and I don't think he gets enough credit. I really like Sheamus a lot. And I do want to see him get that big match with Drew McIntyre at some point. Jey Uso's been doing great too. Jey's really had a big resurgence and doing the stuff as a singles competitor. And Ernie Eastman says, hey Aaron, how are you and the lady dealing with this pandemic, or scamdemic as he says? I'm doing well, Ernie, and thank you. I hope you're doing well too. I'm doing well. All things considered, it's been a good year. Despite the pandemic, I've been able to continue with NoDQ.com. It's done well. I continue to have a viewership and readers, which I appreciate. I'm healthy, which is good. Never take that for granted. Caitlin's doing well. Our relationship is great. So there are a lot of things to be grateful for and things to be excited about in the future. Some plans had to be delayed, but we'll get to it. And we got time. Hopefully we have time. You know, tomorrow's not a guarantee, but we make the most of it, and could be far worse. So I'm not going to complain. Year was good. Actually, I would say year was very good under the circumstances, and made the most of it best I could. And that's all anybody can do. Just take it one day at a time and try to make each day the best day possible. Follow your passions. Do what makes you happy. Try not to let people influence you. Do what you want to do with your life, what makes you happy, what your gut instinct tells you. And that's really all you can do. Just do what you can and make the most of it. Seize the day, as they say. And Anthony Matsell says, when do you think Brock Lesnar will be back? And can you see him with Paul Heyman again? Good question. I don't know if he's going to come back until the pandemic's over, but WrestleMania is coming up. I would not rule him out returning. I'd love to see him versus Roman Reigns or even versus Drew McIntyre again. I think you got a great storyline there with Lesnar coming back and being the babyface against Roman Reigns with Paul Heyman on Reigns' side this time. I've been saying this for years, that Reigns and Lesnar could have a match with the roles reversed, or anybody versus Lesnar with Heyman representing the other guy. I've been saying this for years, that Lesnar should go babyface, go on his own, and have Heyman representing the younger lion, and Lesnar's trying to take down that younger lion. And no, Ernie, I do not watch Ryback's YouTube channel. I actually do not watch a lot of podcasts or other content. It's just hard to keep up on it. Between doing my own work with NoDQ and my own personal life, it's hard to follow all that stuff. But I do check out clips every now and then, and if somebody says, oh, you got to check out this, I might check it out. The This Guy Experience with the $2 Super Chat, thank you for that. I appreciate it. He says, always wanted to ask you this. Why? How are you so positive? Just gotta try your best. That's what it comes down to. I mean, I've definitely had some luck in my favor. I'm healthy, and some people, they do all the right things and they have health problems, and some people don't take care of themselves and they live to 80. Some people chain smoke and they live to 80. Whatever your lifestyle is, nothing's a guarantee. I've tried to keep a positive attitude and put everything into perspective, and it's worked out for me. And you got to let things go, and as you get older, you gain knowledge, you gain wisdom, you learn about mistakes that you've made, and that's really a key too. Everybody makes mistakes. I've made bad decisions, and you learn from those decisions, at least hopefully you do. But as long as you learn from those mistakes and work on yourself and just keep trying different things, people say like, how do you stay positive and all that? I've tried different things. I know Big Vito likes to make fun of me on Facebook all the time about the hiking, but it really helped a lot. I got divorced in 2015. It sucked. It was one of the worst things to ever happen to me, but I started going out hiking. It was something I had never done before, but it helped me so much, not just physically getting the exercise, but mentally, a feeling of accomplishment. And I just went outside my comfort zone and tried something different. So for anybody that feels depressed, you got to find a way to get that positive energy out. And sometimes working out, exercising, hiking, just enjoying the small things. If you can learn to appreciate the small things in life, then you're going to go a far way. It's going to really help you a lot, because nothing's a guarantee. Nothing's going to be handed to you. But if you can learn to just appreciate that you have a roof over your head, that you can eat, and realize that not everybody has that, you'll do all right. But sometimes people take those things for granted, and they expect too much. And that can end up leading to people feeling depressed and whatnot. But everybody's situation is different. I would say to anybody listening to this, if you're not happy, try something different. Read books. Start watching different movies or television shows. Learn a new hobby. There's so many things you can do out there. You have the internet, endless resources to learn about a subject matter, anything. Learn about magic. Learn about other countries and their cultures. Like, there's so many things you can do to learn about. You never know what's out there. You never know what you might discover that you'll fall in love with, and that will reinvent your life and completely change it. But you got to try. You got to do different things and put yourself out there and put yourself outside of your comfort zone. So that's my advice, and it's not going to work for everybody, but it might help somebody out there. Psycho Jet Black with a $5 super chat. Let's get back to the wrestling. He says, seriously, do you wish somebody else was Impact champion to fight Kenny Omega, because Rich Swann really does come off as such a scrub? I think what they're doing is the right move with the 6-man tag team match. I think Kenny Omega versus Rich Swann as a singles match, it would be a really good match. But yeah, Rich Swann, people see him as, you know, a 205 Live guy, and he's the Impact World Champion. So that's just the state of Impact. They lack the star power, and they have for a while. They picked up a few former WWE guys, but they still do not have that guy that can draw a crowd if we were able to have crowds. Like, I don't think as good as Impact has been, and it's been all right, but I still can't take Josh Matthews. I still can't digest him very well as a commentator. But as good as they've been, like, if we had crowds right now, there was no pandemic, they would probably still be struggling to draw. They'd likely be in that studio with their 200 people. And, you know, I've said it for the longest time, a dead brand. You know, they've done everything they can to try and rebuild the brand. But, yeah, without the star power, and they haven't been able to really make any big stars. You know, any guy that came close, like Killer Cross, he went to WWE. So it's been tough for them. But, yeah, I think the 6-man match is the way to go for now. And Oofman Entertainment. Oofman with the $2 super chat. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. He says, what is your prediction on The Miz with the Money in the Bank for 2021? I have no idea. I'm just so over that. But I could see him cashing in at Rumble. He's probably going to lose again. Maybe he'll wait till WrestleMania. I still don't know when the time is up. Does he have until May? Or because he won it, does that mean he has it from November till next November? I mean, nobody's explained it. The storyline's so dumb, and I feel like I shouldn't even care because he could just lose it and then come up with another excuse. Like, I really don't care. I just think he'll lose it. Whenever he cashes in, he'll lose again. And who knows, they may drag it out even longer. I just hope next year, for the next Money in the Bank, we actually have somebody win it that's going to be pushed as a top-level guy and can successfully cash it in. And Psycho Jet Black says, I know this is personal, but why are you an atheist? I'm not judging, just curious. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and I am very much a science-based person, and I'll leave it at that. The people that have their thoughts and opinions, I respect that, and that's one area of growing too. Like when I was younger, I would look down on people for having certain beliefs. I'd be like, how can you believe this? But I've changed. My opinion is, whatever makes people happy, that's cool with me. As long as they're not hurting anybody or manipulating people, then whatever they want to believe is fine with me. If it makes their lives better, then that's a great thing. So that's one way of growing and being respectful of other people's opinions and lifestyles. And I think everybody could learn from that. Just because somebody's different from you doesn't mean that they're less of a person than you. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion and lifestyle and pursuit of happiness. And I'm hopeful as time goes on, we'll continue to evolve and people will be able to respect everybody else for how they live their lives and not judge them unless they're actually hurting somebody. And in that case, then you have a legitimate reason to have a problem with somebody's behavior or belief or whatever if they're trying to harm somebody else. So anyways, guys, on that note, I will go ahead and wrap up this video. Now we're starting to get into the non-wrestling topics. So I think we've had a great discussion tonight. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And I hope in 2021, everybody can move forward and put 2020 in the rearview mirror. I know it's not going to be over right away. The pandemic will still be around for probably half the year at least, if not the entire year. I hope it's not the entire year, but got to stay positive. Again, try to think outside the box. If you're not happy, try something different. There's endless possibilities out there. The This Guy Experience said $2, says, tough, question mark? How did you heal from your father's death? Okay, I'll talk about that real quick. It's extremely tough. Anybody that's lost a parent knows that it's one of the hardest things you have to do. I was prepared for it mentally because he was sick for a long time, and I had learned that you have to accept it. You cannot change it. But yeah, it was tough. It was a tough period. And you just try to remember the good times and be thankful that you had that person in your life to begin with. And again, cherish those moments when you have them and be thankful for what you do have. And I did have a really good relationship with him, and he did a lot of great things. And that's what I like to remember, the good times and his own personal accomplishments. You know, those are the moments that I like to look back on. And I'm glad that they exist, and they still exist for me. And they still exist for my mom, and you know, that's what counts. So anyways, guys, happy 2021. Stay tuned to NoDQ.com for the very latest. If you liked this video, please share it, give it a thumbs up and a like. And like I always say, stay positive, be safe, take care of yourselves. It's a crazy world out there, but hopefully everybody can find their inner peace, and we'll all be able to have a very fun and exciting 2021. Take care, everybody, and I will see you guys next time.